Congratulations for discovering one of the most exciting inventions available to mankind. The truly amazing camcorder. Reliving special and once-in-a-lifetime events has got to be remarkable. Home video has never been easier. Capturing your family in vivid colour and sound is great to watch and can be enjoyed for many years. The key to successful videotaping is to be familiar with your camcorder. So it is important to take the time to experiment and find out your camcorder's various functions. So it is important to refer to your manual before you start shooting. Once you've got a basic understanding of how it functions, well, the next important step is to hold it steady. Watching wobbly camera work's enough to send you running to the bathroom. Now generally, people try to cover everything around them by panning and zooming everywhere, wiping the camera over everything they see. Unfortunately, video like this is not pleasant to watch. As you'll discover, when you hold your camcorder steady, the results you get are a lot more rewarding and much easier to watch. So let's look at the very best ways of making sure you can keep that camcorder steady. A good technique to use is to support your camcorder with your left hand, with your left foot forward and your right foot in line with your shoulder. To help steady your camcorder, you may like to rest on different objects for support. You could even try resting your camcorder on different solid surfaces, or whatever you can find convenient to where you're shooting from. An important point to remember is not to use your zoom from too far away, for the obvious reason that it's very difficult to hold steady shots. To achieve the best results, you're better to get in close to your subject. Now there are two very good reasons for this. Your shots will be a lot steadier, and you will also be amongst the action, giving you the opportunity to capture a number of interesting shots. Something else you should be aware of is your breathing. I find shallow, even breathing the most effective. If you're breathing heavily, it's almost impossible to hold a steady shot. However, if you do have problems holding it steady or you want to use your zoom, you're best to use a tripod. The main point to remember is to get in close to the action. You'll discover that your shots will be a lot steadier and as a result, far more interesting to watch. Holding your camcorder steady is a skill that will develop the more you're conscious of it. So concentrate and keep at it. You'll enjoy your progress. Now that you've got it steady, you need to understand the various shot sizes that you can work with. Generally, there are three main shot sizes: the long or wide shot, the mid shot, and the close-up. Although the division between the shot sizes is an arbitrary one, they are generally based off a human figure. For example, a wide would include the head and feet, the mid from under the hips to the head, and the close-up would be from just under the armpits up to the head. In all cases, what's crucial is the amount of subject in your frame and what your particular shot size is communicating. Next, we will see how these shot sizes are put together and look at a technique that will change the appearance of your videos almost instantly. This process of putting shots together is called editing. To obtain this smooth effect on our camcorder, we must use a technique called in-camera editing. In-camera editing is an edit-as-you-go process. This means that you construct your shot combinations as you go by stopping and starting your camcorder. To achieve this, you must work your basic shot sizes. For example, if you were recording a birthday party. Firstly, you would frame up your first shot, which would be a wide shot. Once you are happy with this, Hold your camcorder steady and press record, holding your shot for an interesting length of time, and then press record stop. Now you can select your next shot. Select a mid-shot, for example, and start recording. Then, when the timing's right, stop recording. For your third shot, use your manual zoom to select a close-up. Zoom up, focus, hold it steady, and press record. Now this is what the sequence would look like when played back on TV. Planning is important when in-camera editing. Think about what your last shot was and visualise what your next shot will look like next to it. You will find the more you do this, the easier it will get. If there is any single technique you should learn, it is this one. In-camera editing will change your videos from disorganised to interesting and fun to watch. An important thing to remember is your shot life. This is the interest period of the shot. If a shot is too short, we miss the information. It creates a jarring effect. Too long, it becomes boring. Now this is a skill that will develop with practice. A good rule of thumb to remember is that wide shots generally have a longer shot life. This is because there is more information to absorb compared to the close-up shot, which has less to take in. Another shot life rule of thumb worth remembering is that moving subjects have a longer shot life than static subjects. Video is an illusion of time. Even though you stopped and started, it appeared that time was constant. This is the main aim when shooting video, to try and create a sense of time continuity. Bad continuity is when it becomes obvious that time has stopped and started. The most obvious continuity mistake that new camcorder owners make is the horrific jump cut, one of the most disturbing and obvious continuity mistakes. Now, to avoid this problem, you must change your shot size. Another way of avoiding this problem is to use what's called a cutaway. A cutaway is a shot which disguises the fact that time has been disrupted. Probably the most familiar cutaway is the crowd shot, used in highlighted rugby matches. Placing a cutaway of the crowd between the action creates an illusion of time continuity, avoiding the disturbing jump cut. This also helps time to be compressed, giving the highlights a smooth, uninterrupted flow. Essentially, the cutaway allows you to stop and start recording without creating any jump in the action. For example, if you were videoing a birthday party and you felt the cake was taking too long to be lit, you stop recording. To avoid this inevitable jump cut, when you start again, you will need to record a cutaway. So once you've stopped recording, frame up a shot of the other kids watching, and then, when the timing's right, record the main action. Now, a cutaway can be used in a number of ways. It can be anything from a shot of a person to a related object. Cutaways not only create a sense of time continuity, but will also add interest to your videos. For example, you can add spice to your sporting videos by using cutaways of the scoreboard or anything that is related to the event in some way. Another continuity shocker is crossing the line. This is a horrible effect that makes the action appear as though it has suddenly swapped directions. Now this occurs when you video from the opposite angle, which can make people appear as though they're talking to themselves Or if you cross the line in a tennis match, it appears that he's playing against himself. Now, the best advice is to try and avoid crossing the line, but if for some reason you do, the secret is to actually shoot on the line itself, allowing you to cross sides smoothly. Composition is how you frame your subject. It could be said that good composition depends upon your personal tastes. However, there are certain guidelines which are well worth following. The most common framing mistake is leaving too much headroom or cutting the head off. Remember that the head of the subject shouldn't touch the top of the frame, and for close-ups, the chin should never touch the bottom of the frame. This is correct framing. Something else you should remember is to give your subjects looking room. This is the area in front of your subject. It not only lets you see what's ahead of your subject, but it's also a far better composition. Also, avoid cutting people off at the edge of your frame. Always frame up your shot before you start recording. When composing your shot, it is important to experiment with different frames and angles to decide which shot you like best. Here's some handy tips and techniques that may help you decide what shot to go for. By using your zoom lens, you can add interest to your shots with different foregrounds. This will give a greater feel of depth to your shots. Subjects that have perspectives can be fun and exciting to video, as well as making interesting compositions. So take advantage of perspectives and avoid boring, flat profile shots. Trying out different angles can make for interesting video. Low angles, bent angles, or even high angles. Try and be adventurous with your camcorder. A lot of people tend to freeze in one spot, so experiment with different compositions and camera angles. You'll not only get better shots, but you'll also have a lot of fun trying. Now, the biggest mistake that most new camcorder owners make is they go nuts on the zoom lens. It's commonly known as zoomitis. The problem with the zoom is that we don't perceive the world in this fashion. Our eyes don't zoom around all over the place, and this is the reason for the disturbing results. However, when the zoom is used correctly, it can be quite effective. The zoom in is best used to intensify the viewer's interest. It also maintains a clear relevance of where your subject is in relation to your wide shot. When using the zoom, try and use movement. It's not only easier and smoother, but it also helps to disguise the zoom effect. The zoom out, ideally, is a developing shot and is best used to reveal your subject. This means that as you zoom out, a succession of new objects will be continually entering your frame, revealing your subject. And as with the zoom in, it's also useful to try and use movement with these shots. A problem a lot of people have is when they zoom in, their end shot is out of focus. Now, to avoid this, it's best to plan your zoom. Firstly, you need to decide where your zoom is going. Once you've decided this, use your manual zoom to zoom up on your final shot. Manually focus your shot, then return to the wide and practice your shot using your automatic zoom. Once you've focused and practiced your zoom, you can then record your shot. Focusing and practicing your zoom is a very good habit to get into, but I cannot stress the importance of avoiding unnecessary use of your zoom. Always ask yourself the question, what am I zooming to and why? For example, it may have actually been better to have cut to your final shot, avoiding the zoom altogether. Panning is most effectively used to explain large areas which cannot be contained in your wide shot and should have a start, middle and end. A pan is also good for studying your subject close up and ideally should become more interesting as it progresses. Be sensitive to over-panning or panning just for the sake of it. A pan like this is not much fun to watch, it's positively boring. To pan without a reason is unpleasant to watch because it's something the human eye does not do. Now try it. Focus your eyes on an object on one side of the room, then quickly look back at your TV. You'll find that although you've seen the two objects, you will not have been conscious of having seen what's come between. In fact, the eye will not have panned. It will virtually have cut from one object to the next. So when panning, always ask yourself, what am I panning to and why? Once you've decided this, you can then record your shot. The tilt is simply a pan in a vertical direction and is best used to video tall subjects. The tilt is also great for studying detailed subjects up close. Or you can even use it creatively to introduce scenes, for example, tilting out of the sky on a diagonal. Like the pan, the tilt should lead somewhere. For example, it's far more interesting to tilt up from a person's feet to their faces than a tilt towards their feet. The reason for this is that, as the tilt develops, our anticipation of the face energises the shot. Moving your camcorder vertically, down or up, is known as a crane shot. Moving it horizontal to the ground is known as a track shot. Of the two, the most commonly used is the track shot, and it's used extensively in films and commercials. It is also ideal for covering moving sports, which are hard to video from one point of view, such as yachting, cycling, or running races. The moving track shot creates an interesting effect and can be used in many ways. For example, a track can be made to look as though it was actually shot through the eyes of your subject. This is known as the subjective or point of view track and is used frequently in horror and chase sequences. Race cams are also another classic example of a point of view track. Tracking shots are achieved by using a number of different devices. Next, we'll look at how professionals actually achieve these shots and how you can achieve the same results yourself. In the professional circuit, tracking devices are known as dollies. For more challenging tracks, these unusual looking devices are used, called Steadicams. Worth between $80,000 to $100,000, they're designed to counterbalance any camera movement and are frequently used in movies and TV commercials. However, there are a number of simple devices you can use to achieve these shots. Or, just as effectively, you can use handheld shots to track or crane. Obviously, this will take a bit of practice. A good point to remember when tracking is to use movement. Movement disguises any camera wobble, which is obvious when tracking around stationary objects. Following natural movements can be great fun and good practice, but don't get carried away and track for too long. Remember your shot light and change angle. Or, ideally when tracking, try and look for an end point to your shot. In general, you should avoid shooting people in high contrast backlight situations like windows or doors. However, if this situation occurs, you can activate your backlight function. This will compensate for the poor lighting conditions by overexposing the background. After shooting with this function, turn it off, otherwise subjects under normal lighting conditions will be overexposed. The best advice if a backlight situation occurs is to either change angle, avoiding the backlight problem, or to anticipate where you will be shooting from, covering any problem windows or doors. Most of today's camcorders come equipped with a fader function. The fade is designed to introduce a scene or end a sequence. It also has the use of creating a sense that time has passed. In fact, there are a number of interesting and creative ways that you can use your fade. For example, you could fade in as you zoom out, introducing your wedding scene. Or fade in on your tilt at the start of your holiday video. Or, for your visit to the rose gardens, you may like to end with a fade at the end of your zoom. Most cameras have a variable shutter function. Now that's a stunning feature which enables you to watch crystal clear slow motion images. If your video is capable of slow motion replay, your shutter function is ideal for watching frame by frame action replays. It also creates an interesting visual effect. Most camcorders have a number of excellent special effects which you can find more about in your manual. The techniques we've covered so far will add a professional, skilled edge to your videos. But as with all rules, they can be fun to break. So let's have a look at some exciting special effects and some funny rule breakers. For example, the jump cut can be great fun to play with, making things appear and disappear. Now, to achieve this, you must use a tripod so your frame doesn't change. To start, record your first shot. Then, stop recording. Making sure your subject doesn't move, have someone place in the objects you want to appear. Then, start recording again. To make everything disappear, you need to do the opposite. Remove everything from your frame and start recording again. You can use this effect in a number of ways. For example, you can even make an apple eat itself. The jump cut can also be used to change people. This is easily done by stopping your camcorder as the person walks past the tree. Then, by simply swapping people and starting again as they walk out. Something else you can try out is the spinning effect, a great effect which is very easy to perform. Because video is two-dimensional, you can play around with scales like pushing a car around with your finger or creating a flaming thumb by placing a candle behind your hand. Using these techniques can be a lot of fun, so experiment with them and see how many different ways you can use these simple-to-use special effects. Now that you've got a good grasp of the medium, you can really start going places with your video. Here are some excellent ideas that you may like to use when creating a sequence.
Okay, kids, okay, come on, but getting close together. Come on, all of you. Yep, come on, you two. Come on, come up here. That's it. Okay, right.
Now there's something wrong here. When videoing your family, try and avoid using your camcorder like a stills camera. Your kids aren't supposed to look like shop mannequins. Video is a moving medium, so make the most of it. Get the family doing things. Capturing natural action is far more interesting and fun to watch. Something to remember when videotaping your kids is not to stand above them. This tends to detach you from their world. You're best to get down on their level. You'll notice almost instantly an improvement in your shots. It can be fun playing different games or competitions with your camcorder. For example, you could have a face-pulling competition. You can have a lot of fun with your camcorder and family. Also, we can't forget the family pets. They too can make for memorable video. Now, if you've got kittens, you can make up a simple tracking device by tying on something bright to your camcorder and pulling it along the ground. This should attract your kittens and give you some excellent tracking shots. There's no livelier subject for you and your camcorder than a sporting event. You can even capture some classic sporting moments on your camcorder. Although every sport varies considerably in its type of action, there are basically two ways to cover them all. You can either video the whole event from one point of view, or you can highlight it from a number of different angles. For example, if you were covering a jet sprinting race from one point of view, you're best to use a tripod and video from an elevated position. This will allow you to capture all the action from any point. If you do stop and start recording, remember to change your shot size, avoiding the unpleasant jump cut. Or, if there happens to be a break in the action, remember to use your cutaways. This will give your videos a smooth, continuous flow to the action. When shooting any live event, the secret is to be on your toes, stay close to the action, and be on the lookout for any points of interest. By using your valuable in-camera editing techniques, you can condense the wedding into a fun-to-watch flowing video that covers the major events of the day, as well as capturing all the magic moments in between. Once you get to know your camcorder and start using the techniques in this video, you'll discover some great things and a definite improvement in your shooting. So by all means, keep referring to this video and use it to measure your progress. And remember to have fun, because with video, anything is possible.